Thank you, Bankaji. Now, I request our learned speaker, Professor Dr. Hitendra Wadhwa, to speak on the topic, how to win by not trying. Thank you.
Okay, my voice you are being able to hear? Yeah, okay, great, okay. Sorry for the little delay, we were having some technical issues, which actually is a good illustration of the main message for our conversation, and I will connect the dots in a little while when unpredictable things happen. For now, here is what we are going to do. I'm going to start this conversation with you, and along the way, at some point, we will be able to, I think, solve the technical issues and the slides will come up. Once they do, then I will start using them to illustrate the journey as well. But I don't need them. We can have a conversation even without them, so I'll start the conversation with you. Is that okay? Okay, and you're able to hear me fine and, yeah? Okay, great. So in some ways, this is like a homecoming to me because I have lived in Calcutta many years ago. I did my 4th and 5th class here. I used to live on Karaya Road. My father was in the Indian Police Service and he was deputed from his Haryana cadre to West Bengal for a while. And it was 2 very beautiful years, 2 very formative years for me and for my family that we will never forget. And so in some ways, it's a great joy. Every time I come back to Calcutta, I don't feel I'm coming to a different part of India. I feel like I'm coming in some ways to part of my own home. All right. So, if I had to ask you, what does success mean to you? When you think about your career, the years ahead, the decades ahead, if you were 90 years old and looking back at life with your grandchild or your great-grandchild on your lap, and you were proudly reflecting to them what you have achieved, what you have done over the course of your career, what would you say to them? What would you want to say to them? What would you visualize as the tangible milestones you have hit and where you have arrived at the very peak of your success at some stage in your career? I invite each of us to do the reflection a little bit for ourselves. What would that mean for you? What would that mean for you? I have asked this question of my students in the MBA program and of executives, and some of them talk about, I love leadership. I want to be a leader. I want to be the CEO of a company and really inspire those people to go and really do great things, with the products and services that we offer. Somebody else will say, I want to leave my job in investment banking in London and go back to Africa, where I come from, and really work on making economic development happen in Africa. Somebody else will say, I want to be the president of Mexico, and I want to be able to then do this reform and that reform. And somebody else will say, I want to solve the traffic problems in the world by creating a new kind of innovation where each of us has access to personal aviation, sort of like, think about it like your own little flying car, so that we can create a new layer of transportation above these messy roads. Does that make sense? These are different ideas people have about what makes them be successful in the way they think about their future. So you must have your own way of thinking about it. Now keep that in mind as we are having this conversation. Keep your idea of success in mind. And the question I want us to answer is, what does it take to succeed? If we had to distill it down to some one thing, what is that one thing? What does it take to succeed? This is a topic that I have been long very invested in, long very drawn to. And, in our ancient scriptures here in India, but actually it's true as much in any of the great religions in the world, you find that they talk a lot about non-attachment. Non-attachment means you keep doing the good things, but do not feel that you have to be attached to the fruits of your labor. That is for some higher power to determine. Does that make sense? We know this teaching, right? It's there in the Gita, it's there in actually many religions, you'll see. Now, is that idea meant for people who want to be swamis, or is it something which those of us who are in the business world, in hyper-competitive environments, with financial objectives and others, does it apply there also? Non-attachment. Does non-attachment apply there also? And how does it apply there? Why does it apply there? Is it a matter of faith that if you're a virtuous, good, pure-hearted person, then God will bless you? For those of us who have a rational mind, who have a very scientific mind, logical mind, that by itself sometimes is not enough. We want more logic. We want more data. Otherwise, in the regular stress and pull and pressure of life, we become attached again. And we start worrying. And we start feeling very happy when good things happen and very sad when bad things happen. And if that's the case, that means fundamentally we haven't yet really believed in non-attachment. So what I want to do is share with you the findings of my research, which actually show that there is real power to this idea of non-attachment. Power coming from a very logical place. Whether you believe in the scriptures or you don't, doesn't matter. These logical arguments can just appeal to us purely on the basis of just reason. Would that be of interest to you? That purely from a logical mind, why does non-attachment create success? And I would offer it's like this. When you operate with non-attachment, success chases you instead of you chasing success. Okay, so my first argument for that, Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, let me just quickly go through some slides. Non-attachment. Yeah, so what I did in doing this study was that I looked at the people who were high achievers, who were overachievers, right? And I said, what is common about these people who are in top positions in banks or consulting firms or Silicon Valley or this or that, right? I actually found there was not too much in common. There were a lot of differences across them in terms of personality, character. Then I realized actually the people I need to look at are those. These are what are called the outliers. The people who are exceptionally successful, not just people who are just successful. Because there are lots of people who are successful. But let's look at the people who are exceptionally successful. And I also studied them across different disciplines, not just business. Because actually, if you go to top CEOs in the world, and PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study on this. They went to the top CEOs of the world and they asked them, who is the leader you most admire? You know who was the leader they most admired? The top 10 people who came out on that list, only one of them was a business person, Steve Jobs. The other 9 were people like Gandhi and Abraham Lincoln and Mother Teresa, even Winston Churchill. In other words, these leaders who have made it to the top of the business echelon, they do not draw all their insights and learnings and understanding purely by studying and mimicking other business people. They actually look for understanding of how to lead, how to inspire, how to motivate, how to direct, how to have visions, how to build strategy from across different spheres of human pursuit. Does that make sense? So if you are looking for models only within your profession, you are limiting yourself from fully understanding the possibilities, because maybe your whole profession is blindsided right now and it needs some fresh infusion of insight creatively drawn from other professions. So to that end, I have studied, among others, the most successful investor, Warren Buffett, who's actually an alumnus of Columbia Business School. The most successful entrepreneur, one could argue, Steve Jobs. His company has got the highest market capitalization. I mean, it's, in one lifetime, how could he build a company like this? I mean, it's impressive to think about that. The most, to me, successful social reformer, our own Gandhiji. I mean, like, how did he do it? How did he end up inspiring a whole country and inspiring Britain too to walk away non-violently from this tremendous crown jewel of the British Raj. The most successful women's rights leader in America is somebody called Susan B. Anthony. She was fighting in the 1800s for women to have the right to vote. Women didn't at that time have any rights. You know, if you were divorced, you didn't have anything. You could not own property. You know, women had no rights at that time. And she pushed, and ultimately she got the women to the right to vote. And once they got the right to vote, a lot of other equality-based measures came about. So she is another example. And then the most beloved American president, which is Abraham Lincoln. You know, over the years, every time you ask America, and Americans would have, in fact, you know Halloween, right? This festival Halloween. One Halloween, I decided to put myself in a Lincoln costume. You know, beard, big black topi, like that, and all that. And I was walking around on the streets in America, and people would just come up to me, and they would say, "Hey, honest Abe." Little kids would come up joyfully. They have so much affection for him. He's so loved that even me wearing a costume as an Indian there in that way, they just saw me in that moment as a reflection of that great president of this. So all of these people that I've just shared with you, Buffett, Jobs, etc., all of them were really committed to non-attachment. They were really practicing their craft from a place of non-attachment to outcomes, right? So there's something here. You might say, okay, what do you mean, Hitendra? What do you mean they were non-attached? So let me tell you what I mean by non-attached. Steve Jobs, who's on the right, Larry Ellison is on the left. He is the CEO and founder of Oracle, right? A very mega billionaire. They were friends. When Steve Jobs had been fired from Apple, at that time once, Apple was not doing well as a stock. The company was not in a good place. So Larry Ellison and Steve Jobs went for a walk. And Ellison basically looked at Jobs and said, "Steve, I have an idea. I will buy Apple stock. It's very, very down right now. And I will take the company private. And at that time, we'll give you a lot of stock, and then you turn the company around because it's kind of your vision anyway, and then both of us will make a lot of money because you'll turn the company around in a good way." And Larry Ellison shares the story. He said, "Steve paused in the walk, and he turned around, and he put his hands on my shoulders, and he said, 'Larry, you are already really rich. You do not need more money. And I don't want to do this for the money. Here is how this is going to work. Apple has a very bad operating system right now. They are really struggling with the operating system. I have founded Next Computers, and they will want our operating system. So they will come and put an offer, and they will acquire us. Once they acquire us, you will see, I'll negotiate a board seat. Once I have a board seat on Apple, you just wait and see, I'll become CEO." And that's actually what happened. He said, "It's very important that people know I did not do it for the money. I did not do it for the money." So that's an example of where I have gotten glimpses and understanding of what are people's motivations and to what extent are they attached to this or that versus they're doing it for some other purpose. Does that make sense? Yeah, so just keep this idea in mind. Here is another example to me which is very, very useful to keep in mind. This is a very competitive industry like sports, right? So this is basketball. This man here, most of us will not know, but he's a legend in America as the most successful college basketball coach. College basketball is a big thing in America. And he, John Wooden, in UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, he ended up winning 10 national titles over the years, his team. And the next most successful coach has only won 5, and the next 4, and like that. And he's at 10, so he's an outlier, complete outlier. And he says this, he says that in my time at UCLA, I never told the players to obsess over winning. Instead, I only had them be committed to playing their best game, but not to be committed to winning, not to be obsessed over winning. What is it that made him so successful when he's telling his players, I don't care if you win or lose? So that is the question that I want to have us explore. What I want to say is that non-attachment does not mean you are detached. It does not mean you are disengaged. It doesn't mean you have no motivation or no drive. Quite the opposite. But what is the drive about? That is what we will explore, right? So he says, this is what I want you to do. When it is over, I want your head up. And there's only one way that your head can be up, and that is for you to know, not me, for you to know that you gave the best effort of what you're capable. If you do that, then the score doesn't really matter, although I have a feeling that if you do that, the score will be to your liking. I honestly deeply believe that in not stressing winning, we won more than we would have if I'd stressed outscoring the opponents. Right? Now I'm going to give you the logical arguments. Why is this actually true in logical terms? So the first is that when you are non-attached to an outcome, then you do not suffer from what many, many people today are suffering from, which is performance anxiety. Performance anxiety in you means you're very stressed about that meeting that is coming up with the board, and you're going to have to present this, and now your junior analyst hasn't done this part of the work very well, and you're worrying about it. Performance anxiety consumes your brain. When it consumes your brain cannot think very clearly. Have you faced that moment sometimes? You consume with worry or anxiety. Because of that, you're not thinking clearly. The next day you wake up and say, what was I thinking? Now you're more relaxed. Okay, when you're not attached to outcomes, then you're not obsessed with, is it working, is it not working? Is this person smiling or not smiling? Is the deal going to happen or is it not going to happen? Has that person sent me the email or they haven't sent me the email? Those worries are out of your head because you're not attached to the outcome. You're more free to play your best game based on your commitment to yourself to play your best game. So that's the first argument I would make for you, that when you are attached, it's a trap. And it's a trap because you experience performance anxiety. Now I'll give you the second argument. They did a piece of research with artists who were in college. And they asked these artists, why do you do art? Why do you study art? Why do you do art? And some of them said, I do art because I enjoy it. And some said, I do art because I want to become a great artist. You see the difference? They tracked these people over 20 years. And after 20 years, some of them had become great artists. And some of them had ended up not becoming good artists and leaving the field because they no longer had any hope for it or passion for it. The people who ended up becoming great artists were the ones who, when in college they had been asked, they said, I pursue this because I enjoy it. Not the ones who said that I want to be a great artist. Do you see what's happening there? Why is that the case? Because think about your field. See, there are many different practitioners of chartered accountancy. Of course, I know it's a very competitive process. But on the other hand, some of you will make it to like a major place and you will be a well-known force all across India and big names. Others may not get there. What happens is that when you are obsessed with that outcome, you don't enjoy the journey. Because your enjoyment is all based on whether you won a deal or whether you actually increase your business by twofold in 5 years or not, or this or that. And the actual joy of doing the work, goes out the window. And once the joy goes out the window, after a while you can't be that motivated. After a while the motivation also goes down. And so that's the second attachment trap. That when you get too obsessed with results, then you lose the joy of actually just doing your best and going on the journey. And without that joy, it is very hard to succeed. Very hard to succeed. Then let me give you the third argument. So, some of you might remember this moment from history, Chauri Chaura, 1920, and how there was a national civil disobedience movement that was starting in the country. And it was gathering a lot of momentum. And then there was this moment of violence in Chauri Chaura, where some Indians ended up burning down a police station and killing some police officers. And Gandhiji came to know about it. And he brought the whole movement to a halt. And he was constantly being challenged by his own peers in the political Congress movement at that time. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you stopping? We have so much momentum. And he said, no. He said, no, we have not learned the lesson that we have to control our anger. We cannot allow this movement to lead to violence. This is supposed to be a non-violent movement. The next time a national disobedience movement was started by him actively was 10 years later. 10 years later. This in history they call struggle, truce, struggle, truce, struggle. He would struggle for about a year or two in nationally active ways. Then for about 8-9 years, he would go and actually work on building more discipline in himself and his team, making them take into more ownership over their own personal reform, self-reform, help alleviate the conditions of, the lower caste in India, push for women's rights, and all of the stuff he had to do to reform society. Because what he was seeking to do is to say, we need victory in terms of getting the British out, but we have to also be able to, at that time, then be prepared to responsibly administer our country by ourselves. And if we are not going to be prepared for that, then, and if you think about it, in the history of those countries that have gotten the independence after the Second World War, what they call the developing world, how many examples do we know of stable democracies besides India? In Africa, in South America, in Asia, how many examples do we know? Maybe it was a boon that actually it was a very patient and slow and steady game, which wasn't really pushed until the country was prepared. And there was a lot of preparation going so that we as a nation today, in a disciplined way, transfer power over to whoever it is that the people say needs to be in power, at the state level, at the national level, at every level, right? Which does not happen if you look at the countries around us, and if you look at many other parts of the developing world. And the thesis I was therefore offered to you is that the third attachment trap is that when you are obsessed with success, then you are not willing to make short-term investments for the long-term gains. You are too focused on just whatever I want in the short term, whatever I want in the short term, whatever I want in the short term. Look at what happened with the, in the Middle East, with Tunisia and those countries, Libya and all those countries that have really sought to, gain their independence from dictators, and other, Colonel Gaddafi and others, right? It's been a real struggle to really deepen the roots of democracy in countries. It's not an easy thing to do. And so that is just an idea, which is, in your case, what are sometimes the compromises you are striking in your obsession with success sometimes to pursue the short term, but in a way that actually harms the long term. Okay, a fourth argument I want to offer to you. See, what happens when you obsess with success is that you're keeping on looking at the scoreboard. How much money did we make? How many people have we hired? How many clients do we have? How much this, how much that, how much that? And you're constantly looking at the scoreboard. Now, what happens is, in good times, when the economy is booming, you actually will see the scoreboard go up and up and up, but it has nothing to do with you. And sometimes in bad times, it could actually go down, but it has nothing to do with you. But you'll feel really bad, and you'll feel kind of low morale, low self-esteem in bad times, and you'll feel like you're a genius in good times. Have you seen that happen sometimes? People will invest money, but actually the markets are booming, and they feel I'm a genius. Look how much money I've made. You fool, you didn't invest. I invested. Do you see? What happens then is, if you start basically tying your personal judgments about how much worth you have based on just this metric of the size of your business, then you are not being able to separate signal from noise. Signal means, what are you doing which is right, and what are you doing which is wrong. Noise is, how is the world doing in general? How is the economy doing in general? Because that you cannot control, but signal you can control. So when you are non-attached to outcomes, then you are able to more accurately look at feedback. And research has shown, for example, that among salespeople with whom you can measure success very quickly in terms of who is being able to over time sell more and who is selling less within a certain business. So you can measure it very, very clearly. You find that those salespeople who are very successful, they are ones where what they do as a discipline is that every 3 months or 6 months, they're checking back with them. How many first sales interactions did I have? In those, what was the feedback I received? How many of those led to a second meeting or a third? They're not just looking at how much did I sell. They're actually looking at other data through which they can get a more precise understanding of what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, therefore what should I learn, therefore how should I improve, and that becomes a lifelong journey for them. Constant quest to separate signal from noise, get more accurate data, and therefore learn their way into doing, to pursuing excellence. Okay, are these ideas making any sense to you? Do you see any value in them? Yeah, you're seeing now how non-attachment actually has a scientific basis to it, not just a spiritual basis. And these two things should never be separate anyway. I mean, why should science and not spirituality? Why should spirituality not be scientific and science not be spiritual? Okay, so fifth argument I want to offer to you. Nelson Mandela, you know who I'm talking about, right? South Africa, wanting to dissolve the apartheid system, gets to be thrown into prison on sedition kind of charges. And now he's in prison, and he's got a life sentence in prison. A life sentence, right? But he anticipates that who knows what's going to happen in the future? Who knows? And so he starts to spend time in prison learning the language of the oppressors, the Afrikaner, white population of South Africa. He learns their language because they had a different language coming from Netherlands. And then he also learned the history. And his fellow people from the African National Congress, they were asking, what are you doing? Why are you learning the language of the enemy? Why are you learning the history of the enemy? And he said, because we have to understand them. We have to learn to empathize with them. Because tomorrow we will be negotiating with them. And you can't negotiate with an enemy that you don't have any understanding of. 27 years he spent in prison. 27 years. There was, it was a life imprisonment. There was no reason why he had to come out, but conditions in the world changed. And there was pressure on the South African government. And they were looking for who is the person on the other side who we can trust. Because if we have to move towards democracy, these blacks will gain power. Once they gain power, they might actually revengefully come against us, our money, our families, for justice and other things. Who can we trust on the other side to give power over to? The only one they found in the African National Congress who had shown signs over the 27 years that he was an open, large-hearted, forgiveness-oriented man was Mandela. And so they focused on him. They drew him out. They had secret conversations with him. And gradually they negotiated a settlement with him, which he hadn't actually revealed to his own people in the African National Congress until a later point when it got really cemented. At that time, he did it. During that time, during those negotiations, he spoke in the language sometimes to them. He talked to them about their history as a way to help them understand black African history, and ultimately got President Botha and ultimately F.W. de Klerk to get to a peaceful settlement to actually surrender power over to the democratic rule. Right? So, what is the lesson in that story? The lesson, and this is him with President Botha having these very historic negotiations. The lesson to me in that story is that if he had been too attached to the outcome, he would have had to lose hope. Now I'm in prison, it's a life imprisonment, what should I do? I should just wait. I should just wait here. I'll be bitter about it, but I should just wait and wait and wait. But he kept going, he kept going, he kept going. Year upon year upon year, imagine yourself in prison in a small place. By the way, I've been to Robben Island. I've been to the prison that he was part of. It is desolate. It's demoralizing to experience what life there must have been like. Small little prison cell, each of the prisoners, coming out for just a little bit of time, political prisoners, year upon 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 year. And I just said that 10 times. That's 27 times he had to go through that. Any one of us could lose hope. You will not lose hope if you are not attached to the outcome. You will lose hope if you are attached to the outcome. So this is my next argument, which is some of the things that you want to go after, they are low probability outcomes. But they are high upside outcomes. Some of the things that you are drawn to get you to success are things that will make you struggle. And if you are obsessed with just the results, when they don't come for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you might lose hope. But if you're not obsessed with results, you will keep going because you believe in that cause. You believe in that possibility. Even if it's not going to come to you, it would still be a life well lived that at least I tried. At least I dreamed. And 1 out of 5 of you will succeed. So that's the fifth argument. Next argument I want to give you. So that's Steve Jobs, a younger version, and that's John Scully. Steve Jobs at some point realized in his first time at Apple that he needed some outside help. So he brought in John Scully. John Scully at that time was at Pepsi as a senior officer. And John Scully says, Steve Jobs had this insane vision. They did not get along. Finally, Scully got the board to pressure Steve Jobs to resign and leave. And he said, Steve Jobs had this insane vision that you can take something like a technology, a computer, and make it as simple to use as a Pepsi can, as a consumer packaged good. And at that time, most of you are not that old, but those of you who are, you'll remember, you used to have these IBM DOS computers with blinking cursors, big manuals. You had to type a certain thing in order to say print and then underscore and then the file name and all of that. It was so complicated to use computers compared to where it is today, right? And so Scully felt like this guy is insane. He thinks you can make computers as easy to use as consumer packaged goods. And look at it today. Today you have these situations where babies know how to use an iPad. And these same babies probably don't know how to open a Pepsi can. Do you see? Computers have become more easy to use, more intuitive to use than consumer packaged goods. I was trying to open one of the Indigo, little packages of cashew nuts. I spent all this time trying to open it this way, tear it. So you see what I'm saying? Like, what does this mean? When you have to be a visionary, when you want to do something nobody's done in your field, you will have a lot of skeptics around you. People will not get interested in your idea. You'll have a lot of passion for your idea. People will not be interested in it. Or they'll shoot it down for 30 reasons. If you're obsessed with outcomes, you want their praise, you want their fame, you want their support, and so at some point you'll give up. Because people are not responding to you, and you want that promotion, you want that coverage in the media and all that, and your ideas are just not catching fire. Look at it with Steve Jobs. He kept pursuing an idea. He got fired from the company. He kept pursuing that idea. Over 2 decades, he was able to get to a point where finally it struck gold. Finally, technology became easier to use than because of a breakthrough of touch screens and graphic user interfaces and all of that. It took a lot of innovations of a lot of different things to get there. Does that make sense? So it depends on you now. See, if you are really aspirational about where you want to go, then keep this idea in mind, that you want to dream visionary, original, new dreams. If you are attached to outcomes, the world will pull you down. And you'll have to rise above that by saying, okay, let nobody like my idea. I'm still going to keep polishing it, refining it, iterating, learning, and then who knows where it can go with me. Yeah? Okay. Next thought to you. There's research they've done on why do a small number of companies, typically about 1 in 10, succeed and 9 out of 10 fail in Silicon Valley terms. And one of the big distinctions is that those who succeeded, they ended up with a business model that was very different from where they started. Those who failed often were stuck with a particular kind of vision of what the business was going to be, and it didn't work, and they tried more, burned through too much capital, at some point lost the confidence of the investors, and they declared bankruptcy. Right? And that's my next, that's my next message, which is that the way sometimes to success involves a lot of zigzagging. Means that you need to be open to changing your goal, changing your target, and not getting too attached to a particular, no, I have to get this client, and I need to get them this year, and they need to be open to working with me on audit, or on tax, or on this, or on that. You never know, maybe there's another opportunity waiting here, another opportunity waiting there. Are you going to be nimble and flexible and open and let things unfold, and as they're unfolding, you're keeping on changing your approach? Does that make sense? That's what it takes to succeed in the Silicon Valley terms, which is that attachment will make you get stuck with the wrong goal. Then one more argument, my last argument. I started a company in Silicon Valley in around 1999 to 2000, in the Web 1.0 days. And after a couple of years of going up and then coming down, it was starting to struggle. And I lost a struggle with my board members, the investors, who wanted to take the company in their hands. And I didn't want to give it to them. So I went to one of my angel investors. We had raised about 10 million in venture capital. I went to one of my investors and I said, Mark, help me. This is what is going on. And help me save my baby. What should I do? I have been able to raise some financing. What should I do? And he said, Hitendra, let me ask you this. Why do you want to acquire this company? Why do you want to acquire this company? And I was thinking, are you crazy? What do you mean, why do you want to acquire? Imagine if somebody was taking your baby away and you're saying, please help me save my baby. And they say, okay, but tell me one thing. Why do you want to save your baby? Is that even a question to ask? That's how I was thinking. But I didn't know what to say to him at that time. So I just told him, thank you for your thoughts. Okay, I appreciate it. I left. I acquired some capital from a bank and I made a counter bid for my company, but I lost that bid and my company was acquired and rolled into another portfolio company of my main investor. 2 years later, I looked back at it and I was so thankful I lost that deal. So thankful I lost that deal. Because what I realized is, the reason I was fighting for it was not because it made economic sense. I was fighting for it because my ego wanted to win. And I was not ready at my ego level to be able to go to the whole world and say, I'm defeated on this startup. It didn't work. I failed at it. I'm moving on. I'm moving on to new possibilities. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to extend the effort and the hope and the prayer and keep going with it. Do you see? Sometimes a project is a dead project at some point. It's better to write it off and move on. But the ego makes you keep wanting to keep prolonging it, and then you prolong the pain. Sometimes we do that with relationships. We keep, letting somebody make us suffer and suffer and suffer. So the message I want to share there is that when you are too attached to a certain outcome, you lose objectivity. You remember 2008, there was a mortgage meltdown crisis, and it hit India as bad, but it hit like America really bad, and Europe also, right? Ireland and other countries as well. After that, psychologists did a study, and in that study, they were asking, why is it that smart people do dumb things? Because these are some of the highest IQ people. Some of the smartest people from IITs here and everywhere, and Ivy Leagues and all that, go and work for these top banks. They make a lot of money. Why did they do such dumb things? Over leverage and all of this, and not see the writing on the wall as things were happening. You know what they discovered? IQ. You know IQ? We all, in India, we love IQ, right? Exams, and whoever is doing well amongst our children, you are so proud, look what my son or daughter got in maths and science. IQ, 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 IQ. IQ is a false god. Is a false god. That's what the research showed. That actually people with high IQ actually can get into a lot of trouble. Because what happens is, there's a meeting going on. In that meeting, some decisions are being made. Look, here is the data, here's the data, here's the data. Now, should we pass this audit or should we not pass that audit? Let's say you are in the mood of saying, we should pass this audit, you should let it go and all that. And you're the genius in the room with all your experience and with all your IQ, etc. What will happen is, you'll come into the room, you want to pass the audit, so you'll use your logic, your data, your facts to make all these dazzling arguments, and others can't argue with you because you're so bright. You have so many great ideas and thoughts, and so they'll shut up. And then they'll accept your thing. That doesn't mean you were right. It just means you won the argument. IQ helps you to win arguments. It doesn't necessarily mean you're right. Because to be right, what you need is not intelligence only. You need good intentions. When you have bad intentions, do you know people like that? They have very good intelligence, but they have very bad intentions. It's a dangerous combination. And you and I, we have that. These are not other people. Within you, there is good intention, and within you, there is bad intention. When the bad intention gets in the way, because of attachment, you end up using your mind and your brain to basically win the argument, but actually then 2 years later you look back and say, I wasn't right. And so that's the idea, that basically attachment makes you lose objectivity. And that's what happened with me in that moment. I lost objectivity. 2 years later, I looked back and I said, I am so glad I didn't acquire that company because our business model was flawed. And there was no way to turn it around. Our cap table was a mess in terms of all the investments that had gone in and the write-offs and all this and all that. It was better to start anew for me, to start a fresh beginning and fresh innings, rather than actually go back and try to recover that, just so that I could tell the world and tell myself that I'm making my company still succeed. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that's the power of non-attachment. Okay, so think about these ideas. I've given you 8 arguments for why to be really thoughtful about how much obsession you want to have with results. Now, this is something, by the way, which affects not just our big macro decisions in life, but also our micro decisions in life. What do I mean by micro decisions? If you get too attached to this meeting is tomorrow, I have to go into the meeting, I have to make this presentation, I have to get these people to support my decision. I have to make sure that, I can be hired by this firm, or this, or that, whatever it is. If you go in with stuck on your certain agenda, then in all these kinds of situations where you're pitching for new business, you're negotiating, you're trying to find the best solution to a problem, you're trying to give feedback, receive feedback. If you get too attached to your own ideas, then you are going to be inflexible. Sometimes you will appear too needy to the other party. Maybe they are interested in you, but they're not interested in taking it all the way to a commitment today. But you will come across as though you are just like over-eager to please, over-eager to want an outcome, over-eager to do this, right? And also you will not be tuning in and listening to what the other person is saying. You'll not be able to pivot or change your idea or your thought, based on what you're also seeing, happen in the room from the other side. And there is no growth coming for you because all you're doing is saying, it worked or it didn't work. Either I succeeded or I failed. rather than like what went right, what went wrong in the meeting, what can I learn from it, how can I go back to them with a different and a better solution next time. And so, so that's the thought I want to also finally leave with you on this, which is that non-attachment is a day-to-day discipline that, if you practice it right, will make the quality of your meetings, your sales pitches, your conflict resolution, your feedback conversations, your problem-solving conversations, all of them go to a new level. You come in with your ideas and your thoughts, but you're open to new possibilities, and therefore you're adapting along the way. Okay, so I have one last thing to share with you over the last 10 minutes of our conversation or so. Before I do that, are we at peace with this? Are you okay with this part? Is it making some sense? Can we do a quick little poll here? Can you just raise your hands if you feel like, yes, non-attachment is something that is an important quality for my success, for me to learn how to practice it in the right way. Raise your hand if that's true. I just want to see if we're, and it's okay if you don't raise your hand, that's fine. I mean, I don't have to be attached to my outcome as well. But thank you, that's good. Now, I told you that I wanted to also share this in terms of what happened in the beginning of this conversation. At the beginning of the conversation, we were having some problems with my slides. You were seeing that? Okay, now I could be very attached to that. I could say, no, how can I start without the slides? No, how can I start? No, how can I start? You know, it has to go this way, and then this way, and then this way, and this way. Life forces you from time to time to go and, now it was very planned out. Everything was very planned out. But sometimes life throws your plans out. If you're too attached, you're going to get very formulaic and very stuck, and you wouldn't know what to do. You're a genius when things go according to plan, and you're completely like a little baby when things don't go according to plan. So it's very important for us to stay open that who knows what's going to come, who knows what's going to come, who knows what's going to come. I have to be very true to myself from within, and I just have to find my way to swim on the outside. I mean, look at those people on the Titanic. You know, they thought they were going on some great adventure between America and Europe, and they were partying, and they were the elite, and suddenly that ship was sinking. And if you're like, no, I just want to hear more of the music, I suppose you're like, let's get out right now. Let's get into a boat and get out. Some of them got saved, others died. Okay, so that's good. So then my last thought I want to leave with you is the following. So far, the conversation you and I have had has been about your success. And I'm happy to offer some ideas and thoughts. We've just done that. It's been about your success. Now let's zoom out for one level. Think about what's happening in the world today. And you know it better in terms of the conditions in India. I spend more of my time, outside now. But, I keep looking globally. Is very unique to you. Your voice is very unique to you. And isn't that amazing? Like the thumbprint also is very unique to you. 7 billion, 8 billion people on the planet, and each of us has something so unique. Maybe nature is trying to whisper to you, do not think of yourself as just a member of a certain community who has to do everything that community does. That is true in the larger service of the community. But you have a unique gift. You have a unique spark. What is it that you are meant to manifest? What is it that you are meant to manifest? What are your unique strengths? What are your unique opportunities? What are your unique gifts? What is the universe expecting and wanting and inviting you to take on? That is what I mean by your purpose. And in this time of change, maybe it is incumbent on each of us to go back and quietly take some walks and reflect on what am I meant to manifest at any level. At any level. It doesn't have to be some superhero level or like some global change. I mean, it could be at any level, a community level, raising the next generation level, a business discipline level, whatever level it might be for you. All right? And so this, to me, is the ultimate way of thinking about the conversation we are having, which is the conversation we're having on non-attachment, is a conversation that says, know your purpose, that purpose is the core of who you are, and then, conditions keep changing around you. You have 2 new clients, you have 10 new clients, you are this visible, you are that visible, you have this struggle, you have that struggle. That's just the conditions in which you have to express your purpose. Keep re-expressing your purpose. Keep re-expressing your purpose. Whichever way, based on the conditions that come, you grow older, you grow, less healthy, you have some distraction here, you have to be transferred from this office to that office. These are just the environmental changes. The environment will keep changing, but you keep taking your purpose and re-expressing it, taking it and re-expressing it in whichever way is most suitable for that situation, right? So how do you do that in the right way? And that, I would offer to you, has to come from your inner voice. Why do I say this? Let me share two stories with you. One is the story of Andras, Hungarian man, struggled as a teenager with the Second World War, came out of it, saw his country go through a lot of downward spiral, and he saw the mess that was happening in Hungary, and he, like many other Hungarians, immigrated, just left the country, and he came to the United States, and he did his PhD at City University of New York, ultimately went to Silicon Valley and became a pioneer by being one of the early founding CEOs of Intel, the semiconductor company. And I'm talking about Andras, who then took on the name of Andy Grove. Andy Grove is one of the legends in Silicon Valley. Now let me tell you the other story, which my daughter told me. She said, Dad, you should also know about Milada Horokova. I said, okay, tell me about Milada. What is it you like about her? She said, look at her. Milada grew up in Czechoslovakia around the same time as Andy Grove in Hungary. Same thing, struggled with the Second World War as a teenager, came out of it, saw her country go on a downward spiral again after that, under the Iron Curtain and all of that. And she chose to say, you know what, I'm going to protest the system. I don't like this system. I want to challenge the downward spiral and take my country to greatness, and it doesn't matter what's going to happen to me, I'm just going to seek to do that. Ultimately, she gets arrested, she gets thrown in prison, and she gets killed by the government. And the last few weeks of her life, there are these letters she has written to her daughter, who's just about 15 years. Say, my daughter, you will not understand some of these ideas I'm giving you, but later in your life, please reread these letters, because I'm offering these advice to you about relationships, about love, about life for the future, not just for now. And then she writes to her husband and says, we've had a beautiful time together, and I'm so grateful for it, and I have no regrets that at this point, my maker is probably asking me to come back. Andras, Milada. Who do you think had the right purpose? And who do you think had the wrong purpose? Who do you think they made the right decision? Who made the wrong decision? One fled the country. One stayed there, but gave her life up. Can you actually judge? Can I judge? Can any of us judge these people? Do we have any basis for judging them? The only thing we can say is that your inner voice has to guide you. In her case, she was very much at peace with her inner voice. And he was very much at peace with his inner voice. And both of them played out their lives beautifully, although in completely opposite ways. Completely opposite ways. We cannot judge from the outside. It is the purity of intention and the attunement of the voice from the inside. And so, you may ask, but what is this inner voice and how do we fully listen to it? And for that, I want to share that Gandhiji talked a lot about his inner voice as the guide for him with everything that he did. It was coming from striving that he had towards a deep attunement to that voice. That voice was guiding him to take on certain causes, to fight them in a certain way, like the Dandi March. He said it just came to me at once. It just came to me that this is what you should do, the Salt March. And most of his fellow politicians at that time were saying, like, what are you doing? Salt? Let's talk about property rights. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about this. What is salt? But he could attune himself to the need of the poorest of the poor and galvanize the masses, in that. And it was his inner voice, he said. So at one point, there is this American journalist, Vincent Sheehan, right? And Vincent Sheehan said, I talked to Mr. Gandhi and I said, Mr. Gandhi, you keep talking about the power of your inner voice. Tell me, other people also claim to have an inner voice, but they have actually done very bad things in the world. They claim it's inner voice, but they have done very bad things in the world. So tell me one thing, how do you know that it's the right voice when you listen to that inner voice? How do you know it's the right voice? How do you know it's not your ego or something else? He said, do you first have to make sure it's the right voice? And then you surrender to it? Is that how it works? And he said, Gandhi, he looked at me as though in surprise, as though, Vincent, have you not understood anything about my philosophy? Because he said, it is the complete opposite. It is the complete opposite. He said, first, you have to surrender. Then you follow the voice. First, you have to surrender. What does surrender mean? Surrender your ego. Surrender your insecurities. Surrender your personal hungers. Completely be in the service of something larger. And if you can genuinely do that, in a way from inside, you are very calm. Your feelings are not going to be hurt based on what that inner voice tells you. then you will listen to a voice which is actually very pure. My spiritual teacher is actually from here, from Calcutta, Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda, he once said, he said, when you become silent, then God breaks his silence. What a beautiful idea. But for you to be silent, you have to learn this capacity to surrender. And it's an idea that applies not just to our big mega moments. Should my daughter marry this person or not? Should I enter this new market or not? It is something that could be applied to every moment of life, every moment of life, every moment of life. And when we do that, perhaps then we will reach the stage that two of the people I really admire, both of whom got assassinated, and their lives were seized away from them. Perhaps we can then reach a stage that both of them did, which is with Gandhi. You know, if you go to the Gandhi Museum at the Birla House in Delhi, in that room from where he walked out for his final prayers, where he got assassinated, there is the history of the last 24 hours. And in that, there is a story about his niece who was serving him that day. And she said, some guests had come to see him, and I went over to him to ask him that would he like to meet them. And he said, look, I'm getting late for my prayers, so let them know that I will meet them after my prayers if I come back. And she said, I kept wondering, why did he say if I come back? And of course, he walks out and he's assassinated. Abraham Lincoln, there is a White House security guard who's got a Wikipedia page on him because he served about 10 presidents. Lincoln was the first one. He said the president would come down with the first lady sometimes, and they would go into Washington, D.C. for some social life. And he would always talk to me for a few minutes very sweetly, and then as he would leave, he would say good night. He said this one time he came down, he talked to me, the first lady was coming down, I still remember this moment, and then as he walked out, he did not say good night. He said goodbye. And he said, I kept wondering, why did he say goodbye? And that night, it was the dead body of Lincoln that returned, because he got assassinated that night. How is it that both these people kind of sensed intuitively that their innings was up? Their innings was up. And both of them have gone on record to say, when they were asked in the past, do you fear assassination? Do you fear assassination? And both of them have in their own way said, no, I don't. Because I believe that when whatever it is that higher power wants from me here, when that is done, he'll take me away. What's the point of being here anymore once whatever it is that he wants from me is done? That is surrender. That is living a life of surrender. And isn't that what this whole conversation has been about? Non-attachment? The ultimate form of non-attachment is moment-by-moment surrender. But for moment-by-moment surrender, it's a beautiful journey towards purifying the heart, opening ourselves up to that capacity for faith, asking what am I meant to do to serve? Serve my family, serve my community, serve my profession, serve the future of business, because I love business. Business is beautiful. Business does great things in the world. Everything you and I are consuming is not coming from non-profits or charities or education, it's coming from business. So business is a force for great good, but business needs a lot of reform, because every 100, 200 years, society has needed reform. And I see you all, in the roles you are playing, in the profession that you are in, to be so critical and central to that notion of reform. So that is what I want to leave you with as my final thought, that perhaps the whole journey in life is about non-attachment and is about surrender. That is my book that we just recently published. Many of the stories I was sharing with you are actually from the book. That is my website. If you're interested in staying in touch, I have a newsletter, I have a podcast that I do as well. And so those are at least some ways in which I can offer to be in touch with you. Thank you. It's a great honor to have spent this time with you. Thank you for your openness to just kind of listening to me. I look forward to feedback that you might have, and God bless, and go back and do beautiful work, right, in your lives and in your careers. I'm very grateful. Thank you.